Hi guys, welcome to Counterpoints. My name is Connor, and today we are going to be watching the Korps of Krieg video by Sodaz by popular demand. 10,000 of you have checked out my previous video at this time. It's been a little bit less than a week since I posted it. And, lots of comments, lots of feedback, overwhelmingly positive, and you guys wanted me to check out the Sodaz one. Of course, I will be very happy to do so. I am a former Marine, spent 4 years in the United States Marine Corps, deployed to Iraq in 07-08. I am a POG, meaning that I was basically an administrator, but I got some really cool training while I was in, and I was also a law enforcement officer for 4 years, 3 years on patrol, 1 year in the schools, and I like to think that my law enforcement training, my law enforcement experience, my military training, my military experience informs the way that I perceive violence. I'm also a massive geek, a massive history nerd, a massive Warhammer 40,000 nerd, a massive sci-fi nerd, and that's why I'm bringing you beautiful people this beautiful animation by Sodaz. And we're not going to talk about it for much longer. So if you want to watch the original, It'll be down in the description. And this is going to be a reaction video. So we are going to be stopping every few seconds, every few minutes in order to break down interesting things, or at least what I think is interesting, in order to help you guys try to understand the piece better from my perspective. So without further ado, let's begin. All right, stopping already. The reason why I love this so much, oh my god, man, this is just great stuff, is the combined arms concept. So what combined arms basically means is that there's, you use a variety of tools in your toolbox in order to be the most efficient warfighting machine possible. This is something that the United States of America does particularly well. We use armor, we use scouts, we use light infantry, we use heavy infantry, we use transport vehicles, we use air support, we use air supremacy, we use bombers, we use strategic bombers, we use strike fighters, we use stealth fighters. And basically when you add up all of those capabilities, you use very complex communicative software in order to coordinate all of those forces. You create a fighting force that is greater than the sum of its parts. And that's something that is actually really cool about this animation, even though it's about Kriegsman, and we don't even have any Kriegsmen on the screen yet, is we have a Dark Angel Space Marine right here. We have Cadian, or at least generic, because Cadian is kind of like, we could get into Cadian lore, but we're going to skip it for today. Cadian is kind of like the generic template for Imperial Guard infantry for what they look like and kind of the tactics. They're the template for it. And then these are Leman Russ, or as somebody corrected me in the comments, although I think incorrectly corrected me, Leman Russ. I don't think Leman, the Primarch of the Dark Angel Space Marines, I don't think he was from Alabama, but I could stand to be corrected. And so just to wrap up the combined arms concept, what's cool about this is all of these things are greater than the sum of its parts. Infantry for screening, the Space Marine for we'll see, and the battle tanks for taking out heavy emplacements. And if you wanted to see another historical film that's incredibly good, go watch Fury. Fury with Brad Pitt. It's a World War II tank movie. I fell in love with that movie, and I'm going to break it down another day. Moving on. There's our Kriegsman. Venturing outside the wire. Quick point. Some of you guys gave me really good feedback about lore in the comments. One of the things that was said was that the reason why you'll never see a Kriegsman without his mask is because most of them are, since they're vat grown, as I mentioned in my previous video, meaning that they're genetically engineered to age as quickly as possible and mature as quickly as possible, a lot of them are teenagers. So that would be disheartening for everybody to see that a bunch of kids are some of the most feared Imperial warriors in the galaxy. Additionally, I mentioned that in the other video by Absolutely Nothing Studios, that it was kind of weird to me that I was hearing Kriegsmen talking, because I always imagined them as these very like haunting death mask, creepy, silent, stoic warriors. And this piece by Sodaz definitely fits that aesthetic a lot more. All right, really quickly. Bam. This motion. Freeze. Hold. This is an actual arm signal. So I'm appreciative of the creator of this art to at least know some basic handed arm signals. Also, what's interesting from the combined arms aspect that we were talking about earlier is the fact that all of these people have different capabilities in the lore. The Leman Russ, I'm going to keep calling it that. Sorry to the guy in the comments. But the Leman Russ, it's a heavy tank. It's supposed to take out other heavy things. It's not necessarily anti-infantry, so it has a very big heavy cannon that can kill infantry, but it's not going to be, if it's swarmed, it's going to be screwed. The heavy bolters on the sides, in the sponsons and in the front, are meant to take out infantry, but obviously they're fairly limited. The Cadian guardsmen, the infantry shocked by the ambush, are supposed to screen out and start taking out the infantry as quickly as possible, but obviously at night with a pre-planned ambush, all that kind of stuff, then it's going to be hard to engage the enemy, especially when they have some components that we'll see in a second. What's cool, though, is that with getting to the combined arms aspect of it, Space Marines have enhanced vision inside their visors. They have enhanced senses because they're genetically engineered. So what was actually crazy is rather than the ambushers getting the drop on this assault column, the Space Marine actually saw the assault and he was like, I know what's about to go down. Schwack, schwack. And like took out a few guys. All right, number one, the Dark Angel with a sniper scope on it. That's a stalker pattern bolt rifle. It might not be a bolt rifle, but stalker pattern bolter. Either way, it's the sniper variant of the bolter. Allows them to engage at distances. Bolters fire mini missiles. Basically, their payload is high explosive. It's meant to take out heavy infantry. It's meant to take out lightly armored targets. And so he was able to take out the human rocket team. When you actually saw the second rocket team, it was behind the armored column. Now, typically, you wouldn't want to do that as an ambusher. You wouldn't want to have one guy's firing into the assault column, the targets in the middle, and then other people also firing into the same column, unless they were like at an elevation. You want to avoid like friendly fire. So typically, what you would do is what's called an L ambush. So you would set up on the front of the road. Or alternatively, you would sneak behind them, but getting in front of them is easier, right? And then you would also have a L shape. And basically you would have areas of responsibility, areas of arcs of fire, where you would know not to shoot past this guideline, because if you shoot past this guideline, then there's a chance that you're going to hit your own dudes. So the guys who are in this part of the L shape, they fire down into the people that they're ambushing, and then this part of the L shape fires into the other stuff. This is very basic infantry tactics. Everybody knows about it. You can Google it. I mean, it's even well known enough that our opponents, like the Taliban and the Haqqani network in Afghanistan, know how to use this. So yeah, basically not quite accurate, still beautiful. And then this is obviously a Chaos Space Marine, a Space Marine who likely either recruited after the Horus Heresy or during the Horus Heresy was recruited and corrupted by the Dark Powers. This appears to be Black Legion, so one of the most generic Chaos Space Marines. And obviously against normal human opponents, he's just going to jack them up because he's an 8-foot-tall, genetically engineered, warp-fueled super soldier with a whole bunch of spikes and hate fueling him. Very minor detail. The rocket was very likely a crack missile, meaning that it was intended to take out the tank. And as a result, there's crack and frag. Frag is anti-infantry, crack is anti-armor. And what happened is it actually didn't kill the Space Marine, because Space Marines have transhuman physiology, which is a little allusion to the tabletop. So the rocket actually went through the Space Marine, went out his backside, went into the tank and exploded, likely killing the entire crew except for the guy that we just saw. So he's not up top. He's not having a great day. This Space Marine is not having a great day. And as we'll see, things are starting to appear a little dire. so everybody's screwed. Who's going to come to the rescue? But Krieg! All right, I want you to think about the level of nutsack that you have to ride a horse into the battles of the 40th, the 40th millennium against 8-foot tall genetically engineered super warriors in plate armor, and then to stab those warriors with spears covered in dynamite. It's awesome. So little bit of history. So I think the last known use of mass cavalry was in the Battle of Crimea in the late 19th century. And I think what happened was, I forget if it was like British cavalry who charged like modern Russian batteries, or if it was like Russian cavalry who charged like modern British batteries. But either way, somebody decided like, hey, even though there's modern guns on this field, let's go ahead and charge. And what happened was modern artillery, rifled artillery that was fairly accurate. Actually, I almost guarantee you that it was a British cavalry charge. They were utterly decimated, just destroyed, just annihilated by accurate artillery fire. So the fact that war is so varied and complex and weird in the 40th millennium that you can bring back horse cavalry with spears is awesome. And on the tabletop, these are called Rough Riders. I think they've since been moved to Legends. They're no longer prevalent in the tabletop. But at the same time, I kind of wish they still were, because obviously this unit is awesome. And if you look at other Krieg art of their horses, they're not entirely horses. They have like cloven hooves that look like a little demonic. Oftentimes they're pictured with like gas masks or bionics, either in a leg or in a stomach or like a face. So while they are primarily biological, they're also at least partially cybernetic, or at least partially have masks to deal with the radioactivity of Krieg. And if you're unfamiliar with Krieg lore, please go check out my other phenomenal, I'm calling it phenomenal, my other very good, Krieg video that you should be able to find fairly easily since I uploaded it last week. But let's keep moving. I want you to understand something about this piece that is so ultimately Krieg, okay? So number one, they are known for charging into their own artillery bombardments because they have to atone, I guess I'll mention it very briefly. Basically, the planet of Krieg turned traitor. These gentlemen glassed their planet with nuclear armaments and killed the civilian population and the traitorous forces in order to redeem themselves in the eyes of the Emperor. They now live in subsurface hive cities where they're vat grown in order to become warriors as quickly as possible. They're very heavily trained as soon as they come out of, you know, their little vat. They're trained to be warriors since they're not even birth, since their incubation. And they do not fear death and do not care about death because death is what will redeem their planet from turning traitor against the Imperium of Man. Not only that, if you look at the momentum of this battle, not only was it fundamentally changed by the Krieg, but the momentum is carried by the Krieg. And what I mean by that is that the Dark Angels and the Cadians were tiptoeing because they still have like a sense of mortality and doom and tactics and all that kind of stuff. As they edge their way into hostile territory, they get ambushed, they do the best that they can, but they still end up getting screwed. What happens when the Krieg arrive on the battle scene? They just charge everything. They charge everything, stab everything, shoot everything. If some of them get killed, they don't care. They keep moving. There is no value in saving each other. There's no value in saving each other's lives as long as the battle is won. And actually, interesting little bit of Krieg lore. Their medical personnel are called quartermasters because if you're too wounded to walk back to the line, then he'll just shoot you in the head and take your stuff and give it to the next Kriegsman. How metal is that? All right, it's about to get even more metal than that, so let's keep it moving. All right. So, tactics, pretty solid. Lore is even better. I like the tactics for Absolutely Nothing's piece a little bit more because it was more historical, but that doesn't change the fact that this Sodaz art is more in keeping with the lore of 40K. So it's cool because, you know, the Krieg hit a stop. Some of their dudes are getting shot. The Dark Angel presses, starts killing, you know, accurately kills some of the people that are holding them up. The Krieg don't wait. They press the advantage. They start throwing grenades down hallways and blasting into them. This is a Khorne Berserker. Whenever you see red, and also whenever you see the horned helms, where there's like, not the horned helms like a Viking, but basically like giant plates sticking out on either side and standing up red, then that is a former World Eater, now a Khorne Berserker. And they worship the blood god, meaning that they think that through anger, hatred, and violence and spilling blood, they can worship their chaotic deity. And they're known and feared melee warriors that have very few peers. And the Dark Angels are one of those peers because the Dark Angels are basically space knights. And we'll just see how this works out for everybody over the next minute. How sick was that? Like, go ahead and rewind it, watch it again, okay? Khorne Berserker charges into room, blows through door, knocking Krieg against the wall, you know, killing some. Charges up, takes out the Dark Angel, knocks him down, destroys his bolter, is on the verge of delivering the coup de grace, but because he's so cocky and the Kriegsmen are so determined to harass him with las rifle fire, which is completely ineffective against his ceramide armor, that he's like, you know what? I'll come back for you in a second. Turns around and he starts charging through because that's what Khorne Berserkers do. That's what World Eaters do. That's what Khorne Worshippers do. They're going to go for the melee. The Krieg, knowing this, take that to their advantage. Hey, we're all going to die, but let's make it count. So they charge. Some of them get some bayonet spears in. Some of them are just pulped with punches and chainsword slashes and backhands and all that kind of stuff. But finally, one of them is impaled with a bundle of grenades in his hand, and he takes out a berserker, a zealot who worships the blood god, a potentially 10,000-year-old genetically engineered warp-fueled super warrior, a I don't want to say dumb, but a ant in comparison, a human life that was snuffed out almost as soon as it was created, that was purpose-driven to save the Imperium of Man through not caring about death and through inflicting as many deaths and wounds to the enemies of the Imperium as possible. That's what snuffed out a super warrior. And that's what the Krieg bring to the tabletop and to the lore and to this art is fearlessness. Fearlessness and a knowledge of war that only Cadians, like even though Cadians are supposed to be a crack regiment, even Cadians admire Krieg. Everybody admires Krieg because they're just that good. And everybody else is soft by comparison. Beautiful. Beautiful. So this was Sodaz, S-O-D-A-Z. I already have a previous video for the Imperial Fist video that he also did. I also have another one for this Death Korps of Krieg animation by Absolutely Nothing. I also have 40K lore videos. So I'm a politics nerd. I debate politics. I do Twitch debate shows. I do my own little rants into the void. I do primarily law enforcement, primarily military, primarily politics, but then also I like to delve into sci-fi and I like to delve into pop culture. So if you're interested in any of those things, which I hope you are because you're an interesting enough person that you clicked on this video, I encourage you not just to like, not just to dislike, not just to comment, not just to subscribe, but also to either ring the bell or click around for the content that I've already created because frankly, there's a decent chunk of it already there. Audio quality goes in and out depending on, basically when I had my settings, but some of the older stuff is a little bit rough. Some of the middle stuff is a little rough. But the content, the red meat, the product is there if the presentation is still growing in complexity and pleasure. So anyways, like, share, subscribe, dislike, all that YouTube nonsense. I wish you and yours well, and I'll catch you in the next one.